Martin was the quintessential overachiever. As the VP of a successful tech company, his calendar was a battlefield of back-to-back meetings, business lunches, and midnight email marathons. His life was a constant buzz of conference calls, corporate jargon, and action items that required immediate attention. Success was measured by how many hours he could stay awake without collapsing and how many emails he could fire off before sunrise. But despite his six-figure salary, fancy title, and sleek car, Martin felt like a hamster on a wheel, running, and running some more, but getting nowhere. His life was fast, but he wasn't sure where he was speeding off to anymore. The only thing that seemed certain was that his stress levels were skyrocketing. One day, after a particularly grueling week, Martin found himself standing at the door of the monk's temple. He had heard about the monk from a friend who described him as the guy who'll fix your mind without a prescription. That sounded good to Martin. He was running out of vacation days and didn't have time for a traditional therapist. "Monk," Martin began, his voice tired and strained. "I'm burnt out. I'm constantly working, but no matter how much I do, it feels like it's never enough. I thought success would make me happy, but all I feel is exhausted." The monk, who had been quietly watering a plant, looked up at Martin with a serene smile. "Ah, Martin. You have come to the right place. You seek balance, do you not?" Martin sighed, slumping down onto a cushion. "Balance? I don't even know what that is anymore. I've got a million things to do, and they all need to be done yesterday." The monk chuckled softly. "Ah, yes. The rush of modern life. The endless to-do lists. The belief that doing more will make you more. But tell me, Martin, when was the last time you did nothing?" Martin blinked at him. "Nothing? What do you mean?" The monk poured a cup of tea and handed it to Martin. "I mean exactly that, nothing. No emails, no meetings, no tasks. Just being." Martin laughed nervously. "Monk, I don't have time to do nothing. My job depends on me being constantly active. If I stop, things will fall apart." The monk sipped his tea calmly. "Will they? Or is it simply that you believe you must be doing something at all times to feel valuable?" Martin frowned. "I have to keep moving forward. That's how you get ahead, right? The more I do, the more I achieve." The monk smiled knowingly. "Ah, the great myth of productivity. That the more you do, the more you are. But let me tell you a secret, Martin. Sometimes, the most profound progress happens when you stop moving." Martin furrowed his brow. "That sounds counterproductive." The monk laughed. "And yet, it is true. Think of a bow and arrow, Martin. In order to shoot the arrow, you must first pull the string back, creating tension. Only by pulling back, by pausing, can you launch the arrow forward with force and precision. If you never stop to pull back, you will only exhaust yourself without aim." Martin stared at his tea, absorbing the metaphor. "But how do I just stop? My whole life is built around being busy. The monk set down his cup and stood up. "Come with me," he said, gesturing toward the garden outside the temple. Curious, Martin followed him. The garden was peaceful, with a small pond and carefully tended plants. Birds chirped lazily, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The monk led Martin to a simple bench and gestured for him to sit. "Now," the monk said, "I want you to do nothing." Martin sat down, feeling awkward. "Nothing? For how long?" The monk shrugged. "As long as it takes." Martin looked around, unsure of what he was supposed to be doing. He checked his phone, no new emails. He glanced at his watch, 3 minutes had passed. His mind buzzed with thoughts of work, deadlines, and the many things he could be doing instead of sitting on this bench. After about 10 minutes of restless fidgeting, Martin sighed loudly. "This isn't working, monk. I feel more anxious just sitting here." The monk sat down beside him. "That's because your mind is like a river that has been rushing for so long, it doesn't know how to be still. But with time, the waters will calm. You must give yourself permission to stop." Martin looked at him, confused. "But how can I stop when there's always more to do?" The monk smiled softly. "The truth, Martin, is that there will always be more to do. Life is not a race to the finish line, it is a journey. If you spend the entire journey rushing, you will miss all the beauty along the way. The key to balance is learning when to act and when to rest." Martin slumped back against the bench, closing his eyes. He could feel the sun on his face, the cool breeze on his skin. Slowly, his mind began to quiet. The buzzing of his thoughts softened, and for the first time in what felt like years, he simply existed. After a while, Martin opened his eyes and looked at the monk. "I think I get it," he said quietly. "I've been so busy trying to keep up with everything that I forgot how to just be. It's like I'm always in motion, but I'm not really going anywhere." The monk nodded. "Exactly. Action without intention is like running in circles. But when you learn to pause, to reflect, you can act with purpose. You become more focused, more effective." Martin stood up, stretching his arms. "You know, I don't think I've ever given myself permission to just stop. Even when I'm supposed to be relaxing, I'm thinking about the next thing I have to do." The monk smiled. "That is the curse of modern life. We are so conditioned to believe that doing more is the answer to everything. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all." Martin laughed softly. "I guess I need to start practicing the art of doing nothing." The monk nodded. "It is an art, indeed. And like any art, it takes time and patience to master. But once you do, you will find that life becomes more joyful, more meaningful. You will accomplish more by doing less." Martin picked up his phone, hesitating before putting it back in his pocket. "Maybe I'll take a few hours off tomorrow, maybe even a whole day." The monk raised an eyebrow. "Ambitious. But a good start. Remember, Martin, balance is not something you achieve once and forget about. It is something you must cultivate, moment by moment. Martin smiled. "Thanks, monk. I think I've been running in circles long enough." The monk watched as Martin walked away, a lighter step in his stride. As the door closed behind him, the monk returned to his sweeping, content in the knowledge that another soul had learned the beauty of stillness.
Please subscribe to our channel and visit our playlist for more stories. This story comes from the book, The Serene Monk, Tales of Wisdom, Worry, and Wry Smiles, by the Primate Philosopher, Nick. For more inspiring stories, you can find the full book on Amazon. The link is in the description. Happy reading!